Sometimes you just have to shut up and this is the review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is Mr. Lord Death Man, as we are going to talk about episode 7 of the Rings of Power, season 2. How are you, man?
I am doing well, exceptionally well, based on the strength of this episode.
Uh,
Spoiler alert.
yeah, uh, if that wasn't obvious already. But before we dive into it, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our ranks at Freeforms.net. Set up that account, get to know us, and join our shows. We could use you, as you can see. Consider this your final warning. After this point, we are spoiling it. So if you haven't seen this week's episode, do that first and then check out our review. Well, you have bad episodes of TV, you have good episodes of TV, you have epic episodes of TV, and then you have the Rings of Power season 2, episode 7. I was totally blown away. How about you, Lord Deathman?
I was too. This episode really gets the chef's kiss.
Yeah, this this was I think I've said this about The Last of Us episode 3, which I thought was one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen. This tops that. I think if you compare, you shouldn't compare, but I will. I thought this episode is like up there with the Battle of Helm's Deep, and which is one of my
Yeah.
favorite sequences in the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Holy Trilogy. But this was right up there to me.
Yeah. This episode, dare I say it, and I know that I'm going to get a lot of Peter Jackson and Tolkien loyalists sort of saying that this is blasphemy, but I would put this episode side by side with some of the cinematic outings that we had earlier on in this franchise with Peter Jackson's great work.
Yeah.
Not strictly equal, but I would say that it could stand alongside of this as a cinematic level outing in terms of its overall quality and storytelling.
Yeah, from the first second until the last, it had so much. And for me personally, the highlight was the stuff that, of course, that battle was awesome, and we're going to talk about that later. But for me, the highlight of this whole episode was the stuff that was happening between Sauron and Celebrimbor. Uh, I thought the
I'm right
mouse
there with you.
that was just. I thought the mouse that was well done, and yeah, it's I read some people online saying it was a bit silly. I thought it was well done, and uh, yeah, the dynamic and yeah, it's like I said, I was blown away by it. I'm still blown away by it, and it's been 3 days, I think, since 2 days since I saw it. So yeah, uh, you're right there with me. Can you tell me what was so great about that scene?
Yeah, this scene in terms of him being, first of all, I agree with you that the Celebrimbor Sauron exchanges of this episode really kind of set the thematic tone for what's happening. Celebrimbor is in the thrall of Sauron. You know, he is literally sort of a victim of this illusion, these delusions, and so is everyone else outside of the illusion, right? They're also in the thrall of Sauron because they've fallen prey to his machinations, and the drama of that unfolds so well. And I think that they kind of encapsulated in those scenes with Celebrimbor, where he's, you know, it's like it's hard to get over on an elf, right? The first children, of Middle Earth. They're still pretty sharp, even when you have the upper hand. And I just love the way Celebrimbor sort of marks the candle to figure out how time is passing in his illusion. And I thought that the thing with the little mouse, it's just one of those little domestic scenes that might unfold while he was working. You could think of an elf as like not wanting to be cruel to a mouse that it sees in the workplace, unlike maybe a man or a dwarf might be sort of like, oh, this
Hmm.
is a pest, I should go kill it. His attitude seems perfectly in line with elf sort of enlightenment, and the fact that Sauron missed those two details, and Celebrimbor calls him out on it. They're like, you're so busy with this maintaining this other thing that's going outside, like the little details escaped you, and that's just enough for an elf to kind of figure out, that they're being manipulated. So I love that drama. I loved getting Elrond back into the picture. Galadriel, her kind of quest to escape the encampment, that was really tense, like her walking past all these orcs and then getting drafted to do some work for a minute. And then finally, as you think that she's about to cross the threshold, spoiler alert, she gets called out by her beautiful hair that one of the orcs spots. So this is what I was just saying this in our review of Agatha. But when you have players who are on the stage or in front of the camera who are completely immersed in the drama, they are in complete belief of their characters and their settings. That does so much to enhance the experience. Never once was I pulled out of this drama. I didn't feel like anybody was phoning it in. You have
No.
great performances across the board, a beautiful looking show. And I keep saying that, but my God, this show just looks gorgeous. And then at the end, they're kind of doing a behind the scenes talking about the special effects. And I'm like, what special effects? Like, right? Like, I mean, obviously, like the cave troll is a giant effect there, but right down to the facial appliances of every orc or uruk. I don't want to get Adar pissed off at me. Uh, every one of them looks like a character, right? It's not like somebody just made the same makeup over and
Hmm.
over again. They apply these different facial prostheses, and each face has a little bit of character. The filming, the camera angles, again, I felt like I was right back in the cinema watching one of the early three trilogy movies.
Hmm.
And there's a real tragedy about this because despite their most valiant efforts to protect these kingdoms, this is a prequel, and we know that Sauron is victorious at the end here. Spoiler alert if you haven't read any of the great works of Tolkien in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but uh, not by that this is just a great season of a really great show. And I find I was saying at first that it rivals, the House of the Dragon in terms of its intrigue,
Oh,
but with this, it's clearly surpassed it.
yeah, it's. I'm actually. I had a busy summer, so I'm actually watching House of the Dragon season 2 right now. I'm episode 3 or something, but I cannot imagine it gets better than what I just witnessed with the Rings of Power. I mean, uh, the psychological hold Sauron puts upon Celebrimbor, and when he breaks free, and then he realizes he's not free at all because Sauron has played chess while he was playing checkers. It's and he's basically being forced to finish the rings, and then he wants to destroy them. That scene where he pours them into the fire, and then he sees they're not being melted because it was pure malice that Sauron poured into that. Can I say it, mithril, which it wasn't, of course. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was, it, that it gave me the chills. And you saw Sauron's power while he was manipulating those guards, and made them kill each other. And yeah, it really was intriguing, and it kept me watching. I talked about this before. Sometimes when you're watching TV or something, you drift away on your phone, and you watch with 75% or something. But no way, I was invested 110%. This and yeah, then the battle, Damrod, the troll, was excellent. The scene where the elf that used her bow and arrow to destroy the destroyer, and she was killed by arrows herself. That was excellent. And as you said, Elrond, absolute highlight. He stole the show in this episode for me. I thought he was excellent, and the moment he realizes Durin is not coming,
yeah.
oh my god. uh, and that of course, I've online you can already see like the direct links with the Lord of the Rings movies and the books, of course. But let's just make it to the movies, where Alliance of Elrond makes so much more. They get actually uh, they give more depth and more content to those movies with this show. And that's something I thought they would never achieve, but they have.
Yeah.
And I can only praise Amazon, and the writers and the producers and the directors and the actors and the composers for making this show so worthy of those movies.
Yeah. And it took a while for me to warm to this show, but I do see that Amazon Studios, along with all the craftsmen, the actors, the musicians, just as you're saying, they were really committed to doing right by Tolkien's mythology. And again, I know that there's a vocal community of people that feel like, again, this is Tolkien fan fiction, or it doesn't really, I heard somebody online kind of saying, well, it took hundreds of years to make those rings, the 9 rings and the 7 rings. And I'm like, well, we don't really have hundreds of years to watch the TV show. So I don't mind that they
No,
compressed,
but
this time period.
I, I always look at it like this, and I also look at it with Marvel or other. You have like the source material, and I respect the source material, but it's like the same with mythology or legends or whatever. If you have a certain person tell it, he tells it this way, and you have another person tell the same story, he tells it another way. And I think you should look at it like this. It's not a faithful adaptation, no, but it's based upon, and they make it so it's suitable for television. And if you don't get that, then maybe watching media with a critical eye is not for you.
Right, right. And it's not
Because
always.
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but you shouldn't judge it on the changes it makes from the source material. I mean, the most silly debate I've seen the last 48 hours was that the fact that Elrond kissed Galadriel, and in lore he is his mother-in-law, and how can you do that? And it takes away so much. But it was clear that he was apologizing for doing something strange and weird, but he was doing that so she could get the hairpin, so she could escape. I mean, it was a distraction. It was a ruse. If you don't
Yeah,
get that kind of stuff, then and you start to talk about, yeah, but he's kissing his mother-in-law. At that point, they were not. Elves are old, ageless, so don't mind the age gap. If there is any, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with that, but if you focus on that kind of thing instead of how good is it directed, how good is it acted, how good is the music, how good is the cinematography, the production values, etc. How good are the special effects? Well, they are great for a television show. They're top. I can't remember television shows with this kind of level of care in everything. And
yeah,
you shouldn't
yeah,
focus on like this breaks canon, this breaks lore. No, it's just another person telling a story based on something, and it's different because it's another perspective. If
Yeah.
I tell a story and you tell a story, it's going to be different, and it's going to be the same story and based with the same basic elements, but it's going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. Judge on what you get instead of what you think you should get. But we have said this many times before, and I think we're in agreement here. Marvel does the same thing. The comic books tell one story, the movies tell another story. They're both valid. They're both canon. It's just a matter of perspective.
Right. And I don't even want to give too much of our time or time from the fandom talking about people that kind of hold these views where they're going into their criticisms of the show knowing that they want to have a particularly negative outcome to what they're saying. So
Yeah.
moving past, that kind of foolishness, I really do have to make a petition to the powers that be that season one, we may have been just waiting to see what would happen with the show, but season two, I think it's finally come into its own. And this show, along with this episode, should be serious awards contenders across the board in terms of the dramatics, in terms of the craft, in terms of visual effects. I haven't seen visual effects that look this seamless on a TV show. I couldn't even tell you what the last show that I saw that felt like it was this kind of flawless in its execution of those aspects of it.
Mhm. I agree. The pair I talked about before in the in my previous moment where I was talking about the show. I'm looking at actors' names right now, so forgive me for a second. But the actors, Charles Edwards and Charlie Vickers. Charles Edwards plays Celebrimbor, and Charlie Vickers plays Sauron, Halbrand.
Yeah.
Both performances were in this episode alone were Emmy worthy, in my view. They should both be nominated. I don't know if that would be a supporting role or a main role or whatever. I don't know how the Emmys work, but yeah, and I don't really care about awards for art. But both both performances were so good. I I made a joke on the board that I gave a standing ovation of 63 minutes after I saw this episode, but it was the feeling I had. I didn't actually do it. Sorry. I hope I didn't burst anybody's bubble, but it was the feeling I had. This deserves a standing ovation in like a film festival or something. This episode, and yeah, it was just that great. From the moment they used the mountain to dam the river until Elrond sitting on the battlefield saying Durin will come, Durin will come. Goosebumps.
Yeah. That was a particularly heartbreaking moment because I didn't have the insight from source material to understand whether those dwarves would come or not. And there's a moment where you see the sun sort of shining over this hill, and you're like, yeah, they're definitely coming. You could almost hear the horses, but when they don't show up, that really was a heartbreaking moment that I think Robert, I think it's Arameo as you pronounce his last
Mm-hmm.
name, as Elrond, he acted it very, very beautifully.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah. It's uh, yeah. There. Yeah, I can talk for hours about this episode
yeah,
and
yeah,
only
you
praise
really
it
could.
and just say how amazing it was. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear we're both really excited about this episode and really in awe and really happy with what we got. So I'm still gonna move on to a rating. But I think I will know both our numbers, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Lord Deathman, can you give me your number for episode 7 of season 2 for the Rings of Power?
Yeah, I think this is going to get 10 rings of power out of 10. Just incredible work on the episode.
Yeah, I'm also going full maximum 10 out of 10. I would give it 100 out of 10 if I could, but 10 out of 10 for sure. I think it's, again, I've seen a lot of television in my days, but I can't remember anything better, with a few exceptions. One we get to talk about very soon, coming up in season 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation, but we will talk about that in a few months. That will conclude this week's review of Champions for episode 7 of the Ring of Power. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this review and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at sakar.freeforums.net. We would love it if you do that. Next week, we will be reviewing the season finale, episode 8. We will be doing that on Sunday, so that will be dropping a little bit later in the week. Check out our review series for Agatha All Along and the Penguin. And next week, we will also have episode 10 of the Star Trek Project, dealing with Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. And we will be reviewing Joker Folia Day, also on Sunday, also later in the week. So 5 shows for you next week, people. Stay tuned for that. For now, I want to thank you also on behalf of Lord Death Man and wish you to never be binded. Bye.